It's important, again, today because they're echoes that we must be aware of. A war started today in Ukraine. A war which has been provoked, which has been driven by the aggression of these same NATO powers. The biggest bunch of colonialists, the biggest bunch of imperialists the world has ever seen, that has driven the world more than once to the brink of nuclear holocaust. Their agenda of encircling and isolating Russia and rendering it powerless, controlling its resources, and clearly opening up a door in their further aggression against China, pushed the Russian people to the brink. And we now have a hot confrontation taking place. God knows where it will lead. It's a dangerous, very, very dangerous situation for everybody in the world. But it's an important reflection of the battles that the First Republic, under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah, sought to fight. It's a reflection of the tragedies that have been possible because of events like the 24th of February, 1966. This is the world that was created, partly on the back of those events. So, people ask, why do we continue to commemorate this event? Why do we continue to draw attention to what we ourselves say is a day of shame? And the answer is, as I've just said, that we live in the context of struggle. There is a fundamental confrontation taking place in the world, which has been taking place for the last 200 years at least, in which a small group of people, having conquered the resources first of Western Europe, then spread their tentacles around the world in an effort to control the economy of the entire world. They want to control the productive forces, the labor that we all expend to provide our daily bread, the resources that we depend on, that we exercise our labor on. This is the process that led to slavery, that led to colonialism, that left us with neocolonialism and a Cold War, and once again with a return to global conflict. And in the context of that struggle, truth is important. Truth is a weapon for all the ordinary peoples of the world who seek a path of peace, who seek their right to development and their right to dignity and fraternity. Truth is an important weapon, because if you don't know the truth, you can't defend yourself. History is important. The struggle for historical truth is important. Through the First Republic are now telling us about a Ghana beyond aid. It struck them that there might be an alternative path. But even then, they are not approaching that on the basis of any central long-term planning. It operates just as a slogan. Okay. So we have to deal with all of these things and to educate ourselves. And so we want to talk about the economy 56 years after the overthrow of the Republic. Program that we have lined up for today, capable and distinguished speakers will is it better? Okay. Who will speak to the topic? I'll introduce in a second. We will have an interlude in between the two addresses, and that interlude interlude will be a poem. During that performance, we will pass a basket around. For those who are in a position to do so, to make a contribution. As a socialist forum, a socialist movement, which is principally about educating and mobilizing people to get us back to a point where we have the social force to reassert control over the state and to use the state as an instrument to pursue development, aka. So we will ask those who are able during the interlude to make whatever contributions you can. Okay. We will start now with our first speaker. And unless you've been living under a rock the last few years, Professor Comrade Naana Opoku Agyeman is probably very well known to you. Nkrumah, in fact, as we were sitting in the room there, Comrade Akisoya was telling us stories about her leadership of certain, our capacity to think and resolve our own problems without reliance on the sort of Western intellectual capitalist academy. Okay. I've heard her speak on those issues. I've seen her act on those issues, and I know she has a lot to say. As a professional academic, she has also risen to the rank of Vice Chancellor of a major university in Ghana. Since she left the university, she has been active in national politics. She's a leading figure in the National Democratic Congress. She was, in fact, its vice presidential candidate in the 2020 election. She remains now a member of the party's political committee. So I would like you all to join me in welcoming Comrade Naana to the podium. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think by so doing I've addressed everyone. And therefore I can go on to thank you all for being here this evening. The Socialist Movement of Ghana for this kind invitation, which I consider to be a great honor. It is a delight to join in conversations that generally focus on the Ghanaian described as the greatest African of all time, our first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Becoming the first female vice chancellor in Ghana at the University of Cape Coast, which was inspired by Nkrumah's all-encompassing vision, remains a true badge of honor. I commend the SNG for the tremendous strides you have made over the years to advance the cause of the ideological left and mobilizing comrades globally to attain a fair and just society. Colleagues and friends, the theme for this evening's commemoration is 50 years after the overthrow of Nkrumah, the state of the Ghanaian economy. To better appreciate where we are, we need first to consider where we have come from. And as Nkrumah once said, those who judge us merely by the heights we have achieved would do well to remember the depths from which we started. And as Nelson Mandela would express it in the title of his biography, it's been a long walk. It's been a long walk indeed of two forms of physical enslavement, of 113 years of colonialism, of neo-colonialism, and of its lingering effects. There are many good scholars that recall these experiences and explain why we are still walking and we are yet to find a resting place. We have wandered long enough. We must stop. 50 years after his overthrow, Kwame Nkrumah still invites extreme reactions in some in this country. Some either love or hate him. The pendulum has yet to find its resting place in the middle. maybe it might not for a while. But who are we talking about? Are we talking about an icon, an enigma, a visionary, a nationalist, a Pan-Africanist, whatever you want to call him, and others? His memory still clings to the national consciousness, and by itself, it speaks volumes. This man was also human. He obviously did not get everything right, but we must also remember that he did not get everything wrong. We are still discussing him, and his visionary achievements remain second to none, more than half a century after his overthrow. Kwame Nkrumah never dies. Nkrumah founded the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences to bring together intellectuals from different fields. He knew that the problems facing the country are not limited to any one subject. They require interdisciplinary approaches. Long before STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, was to become popular, Kwame Nkrumah had established the University of Science Education, which we know today as the University of Cape Coast, prior to which he had established the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He knew that sciences in all their branches would be important for development. He also abolished tuition fees from primary to university level, so parents would contribute only ancillary costs. To appreciate his economic interventions is to see the subject of quality human development as all-inclusive. There are certain features of economic policy in his era that are worth noting. Osagyefo was a visionary leader who governed with actionable, relatively long-term plans, including the following: the 2 5-year development plans and the consolidation plan. And these laid the foundations for the modernization and industrialization of this country. A skilled labor force was to be trained. An adequate complement of public services such as transportation, electricity, water, and telecommunications was to be rolled out. Even though by 1951, our economy depended on the export of raw materials, especially cocoa beans, there was not a single processing factory for this product. At the time, too, there were very few motorable roads, a very rudimentary transportation system, few hospitals, schools, or clinics. Most villages, if not the larger towns themselves, lacked piped water supply. The success of the development plans showed in the following. We had a road network coming up. Takoradi and Tema harbors had been extended or built respectively. The supply of piped water was getting the needed attention. Ghana's agriculture was getting diversified and mechanized, and above all, the Volta River project, which was designed to provide electrical power for Nkrumah's great social, agricultural, and industrialization program, was almost completed. He considered the dam as the greatest of all his development projects. In that spirit, when Nkrumah inaugurated the Volta River project on 23 January 1966, he had this to say, quote, "As far as I'm concerned, this project is not for Ghana alone. Indeed, I have offered to share our power resources with our sister African states." End of quote. The Pan-African impulse, therefore, resounded in most of the initiatives. Even the Bui Dam was about to start. In education, progress was equally impressive. In 10 years, Ghana had achieved more than in the whole period of the colonial rule, with great increase in the number of children in primary and middle schools, students in secondary technical schools, and colleges of higher education. Nkrumah took the unprecedented step in Africa of making all education tuition-free, as already hinted. Teacher training was accelerated, textbooks supplied free of charge to primary, middle and secondary schools. University education was free. Similar progress was made in health, transportation, energy, among others, communications also. under the plans, various state corporations and enterprises were to be established as a means of securing our economic independence and assisting in the control of our own economy. These corporations were expected to maintain themselves efficiently, to show profits that to be plowed back. Nkrumah gave special attention to the modernization of agriculture so that a greater yield and a diversity of crops could be produced. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this industrial drive by Nkrumah remains unsurpassed to this day. The construction of many new plants was undertaken under his watch, and many industrial activities. These include the steel works, cocoa processing plants, sugar factories, textile printing plants, shoe, asbestos, gold factory, cement, rubber, tire factories, paint, glass, name it, a radio assembly plant, and a large printing works. There was an ongoing atomic reactor, just to mention a few. The basic policy underlying this plant was to change the structure of our mainly agricultural raw material economy into a balanced modern economy, and this was going ahead with speed and efficiency. We were successfully managing to use our local raw materials for establishing these industries, and were beginning to satisfy local demand for certain consumer goods. For example, Ghana produced matches, nails, sweets, soft drinks, chocolate, whiskey, beer, gin, cigarettes, biscuits, canned fruit, insecticides, and many more. And of course, these came and supported many jobs that attracted both Ghanaians and others from the region and beyond. So there was from the seed to the table, and the whole value chain employed people, just as we were trying to do with the Commander Sugar Factory. These remain examples of a roadmap towards economic independence, producing your needs, looking at how much you have and living within it, and expanding the means of production so you don't go begging all the time. The National Democratic Congress has not been afraid to learn best practices as demonstrated by Nkrumah and amplify them while bringing our own creativity to this era. We have overseen the longest period of democratic stability, strong and resilient financial institutions, the biggest investment in education, including establishing the highest number of primary, secondary schools, technical universities, and public universities. You need to invest in the people. We also made the highest share of GDP contribution to education, the most impressive investment in health delivery, including Ghana's only quaternary hospital, the UGMC. As well, we oversaw similar investments in the Ridge Hospital, Bank of Ghana Hospital, regional hospitals, the Dodua hospitals, numerous district hospitals, and CHIP compounds, therefore bringing health care to the doorsteps of many. You need a healthy population. The NDC made the boldest infrastructural interventions from the Kotoka International Terminal 3, Kumasi Tamaleho airports, Wa airstrips, Takoradi Port expansion, Circle interchange, Kaswa interchange, and matched road projects, the greatest capital investment as demonstrated in the Ghana Gas project. It was under the NDC that we saw the longest period of sustained single-digit inflation and the highest ever GDP growth rate of 14%. Despite all manner of juicy offers from many companies, especially foreign ones, at the Ministry of Education, we decided to support local industry with our textbook policy and insisted that all the E-blocks will be constructed by local contractors. And I wish to thank all those contractors for an excellent job done. These interventions and others have a lot to do with the examples of nation building as initiated and exemplified in the era of Kwame Nkrumah. So, what is the current state of our economy? Comrades and friends, we have a long way to go. The experts have spoken. The analysis have been provided. The debate rages on. The picture is one of an economy in deep distress. To further deepen our woes, the international credit rating agencies have all downgraded our economy. But actually, they didn't need to tell us that we were suffering. We knew that. The effects of the current economic challenges that we have suffered for a while have effects on all Ghanaians. Take health economics, for example. One need only to visit any hospital at dawn. Some of us have done that. Please try and do that, not because you are sick. Just go there and see many patients sleeping on the bare floor or waiting for attention from overworked staff in many cases. Digitization must be part of the process of improving the situation, but it is only one step. For our economy as a whole to benefit, we also require a solid foundation of robust and reliable electricity access, as well as complementary facilities and infrastructure of the sort that NDC is known to consistently provide. Digital innovation and economic policy must work hand in hand. Without equitable access, we risk worsening economic inequality and widening the gap between those who have and those who don't, when we should be creating the right environment and opportunities to close the gap. The people of Ghana, and especially the good women of Ghana, should feel more safe and secure. It is unclear why in the year 2022, or even in the 21st century, any pregnant woman should be carried on the back of a motorbike, ferried across a river, be ushered in only to deliver on the bare floor of a hospital. In the meantime, many facilities at various stages of completion are wasting away due to inadequate support. Our qualified personnel are losing relevant skills for lack of practice. I sometimes visit large and small markets on market days, and as I look around, I ask myself, where is our economy? How many goods and services have we produced in our own markets? I engage the women to find out where our palm oil, yes, we import palm oil, where our beans and nuts, our rice and sugar, our tomatoes and onions, our chicken and fish are imported from. In those market days, you see teddy bears, many things, from teddy bears to shirts, dolls, toy watches, belts, crockery, mirror, combs, hair pieces, caps, pants, and many more. And in all these markets, the observation is the same. And I wonder, how much money do we put in this? We need to improve how much we produce for our own consumption. This is a trend that cuts across many sectors. When I stand at the counter of a pharmacy shop, I ask why the locally produced and certified medications are tucked away and the imported ones, sometimes with languages incomprehensible to most, are on open display. International competition has merits. However, we know that Ghanaians can compete with anyone with the right support and resources. This is the work we need to do. So, as Achebe might have posed the question, when did the rain begin to beat us? How did we get here? Did anybody predict, or wasn't it too clear that on the path we were on, we will get here? Some of us learned in our geography lessons about the many resources we have as a country, even symbolized by the gold in our flag. Why didn't anyone tell us who owns them and how that was possible? Why doesn't Ghana own some resources in other people's countries too? How do we get our economic pie bigger so that as we improve responsible governance, accountability, and probity, we can move away from struggles over how to allocate 3%. The point I'm making is that we spend a lot of time, and I saw at the university, we get our grants, and it's small, and we are there, all the faculties and the deans and the provosts, we're all fighting over the over what we have received. So the question was, how do we grow more on this campus? That will require a whole presentation. So meanwhile, at the national level, we are here fighting over 3% of our own resources. Where else does this happen? What is the effort to get that pie bigger? So, what is the way forward? Can Ghana get to a better place? The answer for me is a big yes. We must have an overarching vision. We need long-term plans that weave all the sectors together, set proper benchmarks, do serious monitoring and evaluation. The vision must be anchored in uplifting the vulnerable and creating a nation prosperous and at peace with itself and with others. Let's begin by producing what we consume, the example set by Kwame Nkrumah. It is not a new idea, but it works everywhere, every time. Alternatives have been proposed to replace the controversial e-levy as a solution. If what the Minister for Finance is saying is true, and since he hasn't denied, and I have no reason to doubt him, that the government has no money, how can the poor citizens have money? By his own admission, he has unwittingly joined those opposing the e-levy. Therefore, he has support in opposing it. What we need is proper economic planning that takes our circumstances into consideration with an overall aim of making us truly independent. It is not a question of this country is doing it, therefore we must do it. Let us look at our own circumstances, and yes, we can. We must have a long-term plan to which the entire country agrees. Many suggestions have been proffered to get us out of our current dire situation, many worthy of consideration. I would like to propose 6 broad economic areas that will be important for improving Ghana's economic situation fairly quickly. In all of them, the lessons from the past can help, as well as newer initiatives that are advantageous. And in so doing, I do not pretend to have all the wisdom in my head. All I want to do is to put these as proposals to which we can all contribute and debate and find the way forward. I have 6 short areas. 1, promoting gender inclusiveness in the formal economy. Today, much of our economy remains informal or outside the view of public sector. This makes public policy and revenue generation difficult, as we know. A factor that has received less attention is that the informal economy in Ghana tends to be dominated by women, as in the case in many African countries. Given that we have a mostly female informal economy, any attempt to reform it and sustainably integrate the informal economy into a formal one will require a more balanced gender perspective that emphasizes and understands these economic actors. 2, the topic for 2 is promoting ethnic diversity. There is strength in diversity beyond the gender aspect. Ethnic bias or discrimination is an issue that the Nkrumah administration attempted to minimize in their day, but we still have work to do. We must harness the entire population to elevate the economy by increasing economic trust across ethnic groups that do not always trust each other. There is no research on the number of transactions that do not occur because people prefer to trade with people of the same ethnic group in Ghana, to the best of my knowledge. So this is an area worthy of investigation. However, countries that are ethnically fragmented have a lower velocity of money than what they are capable of. If people only trust others that share in their ethnicity, there will not be as many transactions. Tribalism has an economic downturn. 3, international migration policy. As the Nkrumah administration did, we will have to think more broadly at the continental level and beyond to harness a larger network for our goods and services beyond the 30 million Ghanaians. The African Continental Free Trade Area was a long-term vision of Nkrumah as part of his agenda for Africa to unite. The idea was revisited in 2012 in the Mills Mahama era and launched in 2021 in the current administration. It is a free trade area or agreement for countries to make it easier to trade and migrate across countries. This is a signatory. Ghana is a signatory, and we must be more active. Skilled Ghanaians work elsewhere. Better and more protective systems are required to ensure their welfare abroad and their responsibility at home. We must also attract the brightest and best in here too, all the while raising the levels of quality education and training, especially for our youth. The fear of foreigners was an issue in Nkrumah's day, and is still an issue. This fear stems from the wrong assumption that the number of jobs are fixed. This needn't be the case. Investments properly examined, assumptions strategically targeted, and constantly evaluated to the benefit of our citizens, as is done everywhere, should open up the economy and create more sustainable jobs, especially for the youth. 4, digital transformation. Please don't confuse me with someone else. The growth of mobile telephony access in Ghana is important for the future of our economy. Many smartphones are almost comparable to laptops in terms of computing power. Although mobile money platforms are increasingly popular, the truth is that the applications are increasingly easy to build and may no longer require a degree in computer science. I remember our own case at the University of Cape Coast when we had all kinds of difficulty. The 3 students that stepped forward, one was in religion, one was in education, and the other was in history. And they built what we have used and we are still using. As banks in Ghana increasingly allow people to make purchases online, more Ghanaians can and should be trained to build software applications that solve the problems of Ghanaians. For details, check out the NDC's People's Manifesto on the creation of 1 million jobs. The benefit of online businesses is that they afford instant access to global markets and thus need not grow as slowly as one might if they were focused only in Ghana. In addition, this can be a vehicle that makes it easier to invite small businesses into the dance tango. There is increasing interest in investing in African businesses online, and we need to take advantage. 5, the economic impact of education. Improving access to education is important, but it is just as important to ensure that there are jobs to ensure the graduates after their training. Improving the quality and relevance of education is key to this endeavor. Read our report on the rationale for the emphasis on math and science education, strengthening technical education, and converting polytechnics to technical education, and you will understand where we are coming from. Education is not only important in order to have enlightened population that makes sound and ethical decisions in a safe society. Education has fundamental implications for our economy. From an economic standpoint, people tend to earn more when they are better educated and so on. Because through education, that is a proper quality, relevant education, people become more exposed to various needs and wants that translate into consumer behavior. For example, much of the consumer spending in the country that we see today may not even be possible if not for the progress we have seen in education since the days of Kwame Nkrumah, when he allocated 40% of the budget to education. Nobody has beaten this record. The fact that so many of our businesses remain small and informal signals that we need to get more serious about the work that should happen in education, both formal and informal. By improving the quality, relevance, and access to education, we can help to support businesses and enable them grow. This is the kind of vision that will be needed to help take Ghana's economy to new heights, with a population that is more involved in the economy and the benefits that will come over time. The final point before my conclusion is industrial policy. We need an industrial policy definitely refers to the official strategy of a country to encourage economic growth. An industrial policy normally focuses on building a domestic manufacturing sector that is continentally and globally competitive. Transportation, telecommunication, and other sectors are strengthened in this area. But steps are not taken just because these areas are important in themselves. They should be part of a cohesive and unified intervention towards making an entire economy grow over time. The goal of an industrial policy for a country is to have large industries within its borders that can compete on a global and continental stage. Right now, Ghana imports almost everything. However, we can gradually focus our imports on technologies that help us to produce more goods in country from scratch to finish than to import the finished products themselves. And we did a lot of work to identify these in our lives in government to make this happen. Although one cannot turn this around overnight, we need a roadmap on the sectors that an administration decides to prioritize, and we can grow our economy and evolve it. For example, a policy involved in limiting imports of finished goods and emphasizing imports and creation of machinery in particular will be helpful. Let's visit the ITTU. It's amazing what they do. And I wonder, why don't we purchase these things? This is why we can grow our own engineers. So we don't need our engineers roaming the streets looking for jobs. In most, I'm drawing to a conclusion. In most democracies, debate is key to any decision making. This must not, and this will not change. Economic progress must be broken up into realistic milestones with timelines that reflect urgency. This will require smaller and more agile policy teams in the ministries and fewer committees and regular progress reporting at the individual staff level and sector level to maintain accountability and consistent goal achievement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must take action to boost our own confidence in our ability to heal our country, to lift both local and non-local investor confidence. This is the time for calm, sober minds and voices to deeply reflect how we got here. We must learn to listen, respect dissenting views in order to collectively own the outcomes. It is the time to dream again. It is the time to dream big, maybe dream bigger than Nkrumah did. With collective determination, dedication, zeal, and conviction, yes, we can. And the time is now. Finally, comrades, allow me to say this by way of ending. Human as he was, Kwame Nkrumah may have had his weaknesses. However, regardless how we choose to remember him, he was not corrupt. He was neither arrogant nor pompous. On the contrary, despite his worldwide acclaim, he remained the simple, selfless, conscientious leader that he was. We can all learn from this. The son of Yaneba was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was not tribalistic, of the primordial, irrational kind. He respected women and invested in the youth. Osagyefo worked hard to create a nation of one people with one destiny. He instilled confidence in us as Ghanaians and as Africans. It is the quality of Osagyefo's leadership that propelled Ghana into the world stage. It is not by accident that his statue graces the forecourt of the AAU building in Addis Ababa, and that he has been declared the African of the millennium. That is not a mistake. Neither is it an accident that his presence is felt in institutions, scholarship, buildings, establishments, edifices, highways in many African and non-African countries. He has earned his keep. Ghana today cries for that visionary leadership because it is an indispensable quality for the forward march that we yearn for. Finally, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends, family, ladies, Kwame Nkrumah never dies. Thank you very much.
Please join me again in saying thank you to Comrade Naana. There was a lot in there, a tremendous deal which we may gloss over, but remember the 6 points she made and the statements about values of leadership and the efforts we must make together to dream, to aspire beyond even what Osagyefo managed to do, and to confront the problems of today. Once again, thank you. As I said in the beginning, we have a poetry interlude now. So we will invite Comrade Oswald, I hope you are ready, to give us your poem. While we are doing that, Loretta, as I said, we will pass the basket around, and those who are in the position, please feel free to contribute to the work we do together.
Across the parapets, I hear his deeds and echoing and sounding and resounding, and I see their blue shame that took our shine that day. That day, the 24th of February, 1966. Day when the spirit selfishness descended upon children. Day when men chose to be myopic, chose to be evil, chose to be Judases, chose to betray generations born and unborn, and alas, our songs brewed of joy, sorrows never ceasing, sorrows never ending. That day, a stab in the back, that day, a stab in the dark, that day when shame took our shine and spat upon the toils and blood of our long gone warriors. Oh, Bumankuma, Dapejane, Osne Chiniabua. That day when they chose to ridicule the long-fought warfare of our long-gone warriors for good and glorified fortune. That day, against many, and yet one. Kwame Nkrumah, Nyame Shirawo. Kwame Nkrumah, Nyame Shirawo. Eka yawa Gokosa, ene yawa Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah, Nyame Shirawo. So if you ever come across those who gather against Nkrumah, Tell them he died before his birth and was born soon after his death. Tell them he was made man for short life and he was made an ideology for eternal existence. If you ever come across those who gather against Nkrumah, tell them he was born once, killed several times, died once, buried thrice, and yet Nkrumah never dies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will introduce our next speaker in a second, but I thought I should mention that amongst us tonight we have the representatives of both the Palestinian people, Comrade, and of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, amongst us. There are also quite a number of old and distinguished friends of SMG that bear mention. The difficulties when you start, you can't stop. So I will skip that for now, and perhaps before the end of the evening, we'll say hello to some of our old and most dedicated friends. Our next speaker, again, is very well known to everybody here. I have introduced Comrade Pratt many times before and never gotten beyond a sentence because he is so well known, so well respected, so well loved, in fact. But I thought today I should perhaps say a bit about him. We all know Kwesi as a polemicist. We know him as the foremost combatant in the struggle about ideas, the struggle to shape the way we understand the world around us and are able to use that understanding to transform that. And Kwesi is the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. But he also is a distinguished and, thank you, very well respected journalist. Kwesi has been in the trenches of the media at least since the late 60s and so on, and has a substantial body of work as a journalist that it is worth becoming familiar with. So don't just see him as an agitator. I thought I should also make the point that Kwesi is a very impressive entrepreneur. He's not all high-level talk about ideas and so on, but Kwesi over many, many years has engaged in many, many activities that create economic value, that create work for other people that people don't know about. He's been involved in the entertainment industry, he's been involved in the clothing industry, he's looked at food, he's done many, many things. Not just to keep his own body and soul and family together, but to actually participate in the work of economic transformation that faces our society. And I think these are things you need to know about him. Kwesi's contribution to building SMG and SFG before it is really phenomenal. He's very modest, and I'm sure he's feeling embarrassed, and I'm happy that I'm saying these things. But the truth is that the movement we have today, the networks that we have today within our country, outside of our country, the respect that our small and humble organization enjoys, and the potential that we see for ourselves as combatants on behalf of the people of Ghana is largely due to his individual effort, to the inspiration he has provided to all of us who work on a daily basis with him, to his sacrificial approach to the service of mankind. And I really, I'm truly humbled and proud to call him my comrade. So, if you will, please welcome Comrade Kwesi Pratt to the podium.
Comrades and friends, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, time has a way of telling stories in more graphic terms. Today, the people who justified the overthrow of Nkrumah on 24 February 1966 dare not repeat what they said then. Because if they repeat what they said then, it will be more than sufficient justification for their own overthrow. They told us then that we were suffering economic hardship and therefore the coup was justified. What are we suffering today? Are we not suffering economic hardship? And if suffering economic hardship is justification for overthrowing government, can they dare today say the things that they said on 24 February 1966? This is what time does with all of us. And it's only time which shows how inconsistent we can be, and we are some of the time. I am particularly happy today to be speaking on the same platform with such a distinguished personality as Professor Naana Jane Opoku Agyeman. And I say this not just as a matter of courtesy. I say this because I believe this very, very deeply. A couple of years ago, I got invited to the University of Cape Coast, which has started the Nkrumah Memorial Lectures. And I listened to Professor Naana Jane Opoku Agyeman. And at the end of her lecture, I said to myself that the women of Ghana are ready and ready for leadership. I was left in no doubt that the battle for the development of Ghana on the basis of self-reliance and on the basis of the principles of equality and so on had arrived then. And I knew that one day we will succeed in implementing the lofty ideas of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah once again. Our gathering here today is the clearest manifestation of the fact that those who staged the 1966 coup have failed and will continue to fail, and that the forces of progress, the forces of socialism and internationalism will triumph always over the forces of reaction and decadence. Today, we are discussing 56 years after the overthrow of the Osagyefo and the state of the Ghanaian economy. There is not much to say about the state of the Ghanaian economy. Everybody knows the state of the Ghanaian economy, and everybody feels the Ghanaian economy. You know, some of our countrymen, when they are called upon to discuss the state of the Ghanaian economy, throw about meaningless statistics and meaningless slogans, slogans which have no relevance to the lives of our people. I urge all of us tonight to look at the state of the Ghanaian economy from the point of view of our survival, our living conditions on a daily basis. That is where the true state of the Ghanaian economy can be discerned. All of you know, and I need not tell you, that over the last 5 years, the price of kinky has doubled. And you know that. The doubling of the price of kinky is not an accident. That's a loud statement about the state of the Ghanaian economy. All of us know that over the last 5 years, the price of petroleum products have doubled. And that is a loud statement about the state of the national economy. All of us know our many friends and relatives who have not been paid for 7 months, even though they continue to go to work on a daily basis. That's a statement about the state of the Ghanaian economy. Only yesterday, the Minister of Finance made a rather interesting statement. The Minister of Finance, Honorable Kyeretwie, looked all of us in the face and said that the Ghanaian economy is in tatters. And he said that if we don't agree to pay the e-levy, Armageddon will visit us. Clearly, the only solution they appear to have is e-levy. For their information, we will never pay that e-levy. And if all they can do is to impose the e-levy on us, and they know that if they are not able to impose the e-levy on us, the economy will crash, then maybe they should start advising themselves to pack out of office, because we ain't going to pay that e-levy. I am surprised. And anybody capable of applying common sense should be surprised that we live on the West African coast in a country called Ghana with 30 million people. 30 million people. We are the 5th largest producer of gold in the world. We are the largest producer of gold in Africa. We have diamond. We have manganese. We have enormous water resources. Our land is crisscrossed by all kinds of rivers, including the biggest man-made lake in the world. That we have the human beings that we have. Look around you. Look at the people around you. Look at the people around you. And that in spite of all of this, and in spite of a rich history of struggle against oppression and economic degradation, our leaders look us in the face and they tell us that the only solution they have is the imposition of e-levy. What an insult to all of us. What an insult to all of us. Comrades and friends, there are so many things that baffle me about the Ghanaian economy. And one of the things that is most baffling is that any time we have some crisis, any time the crisis deepens, our leaders turn around and say, then we are going to the IMF and the World Bank. Is that not baffling? First and foremost, there is no country in the world which has been rescued from economic strangulation by the International Monetary Fund and the IMF. No country whatsoever. Nobody can point to one country in the world which has succeeded by following the prescriptions of the World Bank and the IMF. Now, secondly, Secondly, who are those people who work in the IMF and the World Bank? Are they better than all the people we have trained in Ghana? Are the lawyers who work on the IMF and the World Bank better than Professor Akila Kwasoa, who is sitting here with us today? Are they more knowledgeable than all the economists we have produced from all of our universities? Do they understand the Ghanaian economy better than the market women in Makola and Salaga markets? Are we saying that out of 30 million Ghanaians, we cannot get the equivalent of those people in the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund? I think this frequent recourse to IMF and World Bank is an insult to the Ghanaian intellectual community. It's an insult to our capacity to think out of our problems. And governments which come to us and speak like that cannot be trusted, and we must not repose our confidence in such governments. They are useless governments. In all of our universities, in all of our institutions of higher learning, there are economics departments. What are we doing with all of the economics departments in the University of Ghana, in the University of Science and Technology, in the University of Cape Coast, in the Accra Technical University, and so on? What are we doing with the expertise in these universities? What incentives are we giving them to begin to think through our problems? What are we doing with this capacity that we have? Why are we always running outside this country for solutions when the solutions are right with us here in Ghana? And in any case, what does it take? What does it take to resolve some of these problems which confront us? Comrades, one of the problems that we have, acute problems that we have, is inadequate housing supply. Our people don't have access to decent houses. You know, I travel around Accra most of the time in the night. You see this very road in front of us? It extends to another road which leads to Abakala Pass. And in the days of General Kutu Achampong, they built a bridge there. Under that bridge are holes. If you pass under that bridge every night, you would see that under the bridge is a residential area for a certain category of Ghanaians. That's where they sleep. Now, what does it take to solve the housing problem? We have naturally occurring cement at Otepolu, black cement. Why are we not utilizing black cement in building construction? Why do we always have to import clinker cement? Why have we stopped thinking? Why? The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research put together our scientists, and they developed what has come to be known as pozzolano cement. Why are we still dependent on clinker? Why are we building these monstrous structures which cannot be sustained? Drive around Accra. Now the case is to build glass houses. Glass houses. At enormous expense. Everything we use in the construction of glass houses are imported. Very high cost. You build these glass houses, you cannot have natural ventilation, and you bring air conditioners, which we don't make. And the air conditioners are powered by electricity, which we have in short supply. If this is not crazy, What is crazy? If this is not madness, what is madness? Today, as we speak, every newspaper you take, every media you access is talking about unemployment. Unemployment. Now we have made it look like the creation of jobs is some magical feat that only the Professor KKKs and so on can perform. Creating jobs is not a magical feat. You create jobs by solving the problems of the population. So when you have a high level of unemployment, it simply means that you are not making efforts to solve the problems that confront your people. Finish. Why? If your people lack access to health facilities, and you build health facilities, you are going to need builders to build that health facility. That's providing employment, alright? You need a mason, you need a carpenter, you need that. Providing employment. When the structures have been finished, you need to finish them. The process of finishing them provides employment. You need to clean them. And if you're going to clean them, you need cleaners. That provides employment. And then you need doctors to populate those structures. That's employment. You need nurses to assist the doctors. That's employment. You need ambulance drivers. You need persons who repair the ambulances when they break down. That is employment. If you want to expand access to education, you build schools, you create structures, that is creating employment. You need teachers to run the schools, that is creating employment. The teachers may need chalk. Manufacturing chalk is creating employment. If your people need access to potable water, it creates employment. So in any society where the unemployment rate is high, you can conclude that that society and its leadership is not making a contribution to resolving the concrete problems of the population. The unemployment is there not because we don't have money. The unemployment is there not because our people are lazy. The unemployment is there because we are not resolving the concrete problems that confront our people. You see, we talk about Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and the wonderful things that he did, and he did a lot of wonderful things. He expanded access to education, he expanded access to social services, health, whatever, housing, and so on. He built massive infrastructure. The Akosombo Dam, they started the construction of the Bui Dam and so on. But I look at all of these things and I say that those were not the greatest achievements of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Those were not the greatest achievements of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The most important thing in the Nkrumah era is the thinking, the human brain power, the ideology and so on, which led to all of these wonderful developments. So today, Nkrumah has been overthrown and Nkrumah has died. But those ideas live on, and we can begin to do what Nkrumah did in the 1950s and 1960s. We can do it, we will do it, and we will succeed once again. This morning, I grabbed one of the local newspapers this morning. I'd gone to the studio to do the newspaper review, and I have to read all the newspapers before we start the newspaper review. And I saw a quotation from Mr. Kwame P. a founding member of the New Patriotic Party and a leading economist in Ghana. And Mr. Kwame P. said that our Yale-educated finance minister has been a monumental failure. And it struck me. It struck me that our finance minister is Yale educated. What does that mean? Yale educated. And there are so many of them throwing their certificates in our face. Oxford educated, Harvard educated, Yale educated, and so what? Comrades and friends, one of the most important decisions taken by any government in my lifetime was the decision taken by the Chairperson government that anybody who wants to invest in the extractive sector of the Ghanaian economy, gold mining and so on, needs to have 55% participation by Ghanaians. Chairperson did not go to Yale University. Chairperson did not go to Oxford University. Chairperson was not a product of Harvard University. Chairperson came out of the Swedrow Business School, and he had a lot more sense. So the era of people going around throwing their certificates at us and so on is over. Education is important. Education is the means through which we acquire knowledge. We acquire the experiences of the past and so on. And we try to improve knowledge and so on. Education is very, very important. But acquiring a certificate is not the same as acquiring education. Because there are so many people who acquire empty certificates, useless certificates that have no bearing to what that certificate should certify that they are capable of doing. We have come to a new era when our leaders and people must be judged on how they contribute to improving the living and working conditions of our people rather than those useless certificates they throw in our faces. This is the time when we must make judgments on the basis of what we contribute to make people eat at least 1 square meal a day. You know, most of the times, when we are called upon to describe the Ghanaian economy and so on, we like to peddle the figures. The gross domestic product, per capita income, rate of inflation and so on. What does that mean? And those who peddle these things, they are so damn ignorant that they don't even know that these are statistical averages. And statistical averages hide more than they reveal. So when we are told that we are enjoying a per capita income of a certain amount, what does that mean? It simply means that if you put all our incomes together, and that would include those who earn 300 cedis a month, that's an income, you put it together. And then those who earn 50,000 cedis a month, you add it. You add all the incomes and you divide by the number of income earners or a certain population, and you have per capita income. Is this something that we should be boasting about? Does this tell us the whole story? Because it is possible that in a year, expatriates alone, their incomes can change the per capita income. It is possible that in a year, when the majority of our people are suffering, cannot buy petrol, cannot buy kenke, cannot buy fish and so on, the per capita income will rise. So what is this use of per capita income and all these useless noises we keep hearing every day? Unless people apply themselves to use those taxes to get the materials needed and to apply human brain and muscle power. But you know, I asked my guide then, now what does this mean? I said, well, this is a communist state. Everybody works for the state. At the end of the month, we pay everybody so much, and we take from their pay and call it taxes. What if we just paid them what they needed? So instead of paying them 12 cedis to take back 2 cedis, if you pay them 10 cedis, what is the problem? So there's this fixation with taxes because we don't break it down. We don't break it down. Why? Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, when he has started his agitation for national independence, and when he put us on the path of self-reliance, development, and so on, first and foremost started as a leader of the West African Students' Union. He started as a leader of the West African Students' Union because he was fully convinced that no independent or no African country could go it alone. And that as Africans, we needed to tackle our problems in unity. That the scourge of colonialism in those days needed to be confronted by the full might of all West Africans acting together. African unity, African integration is part of the effort to resolve the problems of Africa. Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo alone has enough hydropower to provide the whole of Africa with electricity. Today, the Nile comes from Egypt, through Sudan, through all of those countries and so on. Why can't the countries through which the Nile passes sit together and think about how to utilize the resources of the Nile to resolve their common problems? Why can't they do that? Not long ago, La Côte d'Ivoire claimed that part of our oil resources belonged to them. I hope you remember. And some of the soldiers in La Côte d'Ivoire were ready to go to war to claim that oil field. Good counsel prevailed, and eventually we went to an international court of arbitration, and it was decided that that oil belonged to Ghana. Wait a minute, just ask yourselves, if that oil had been given to La Côte d'Ivoire, especially La Côte d'Ivoire under Alassane Ouattara, what would have happened to that oil? They would simply have surrendered it to Total of France. They didn't give it to La Côte d'Ivoire, they gave it to Ghana. What did we do to what they gave us? We gave it to the multinational corporations from the colonial metropolis. And today, we get only 20% of the oil we dig from our soils. We were ready to go to war with La Côte d'Ivoire over oil, only to take the oil and give it back to our colonial masters. Brilliant leaders, extraordinary leaders, visionary leaders. Is that what we have? This is our problem. The whole of the continental shelf in West Africa, according to studies, has oil and gas. The whole of the continental shelf. Why can't Armageddon hasn't arrived yet? Why can't the leaders of West African states come together and form a consortium to raise the resources so that we can exploit our oil and gas resources in West Africa for West Africa as these multinational corporations? Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? And we have reduced ECOWAS to some kind of a laughing stock, completely removed from the reality of our situation. So today, ECOWAS makes decisions about Mali, and the Malian people are out in the streets in their thousands, laughing at ECOWAS leaders and hooting at them. That's the reality. Today, ECOWAS makes decisions about Guinea, and the Guinean people are in the streets in their thousands, demonstrating against ECOWAS leaders. The gulf between the leaders of ECOWAS and the people of ECOWAS is getting wider and wider and wider. And I do hope that one day these leaders of ECOWAS will sit up and re-examine themselves and take steps to bring their policies and actions in line with the true aspirations of our people. Today, we have been deceiving ourselves for a very long time. The last time I heard, African leaders claimed to have signed some agreement which would enable us trade amongst ourselves. And we were hailing ourselves. We have signed an agreement which will enable us trade amongst ourselves. What do you produce to go and trade? What do you produce? In Ghana, toothpicks are imported. Toothpicks are imported. We are importing tomatoes. We are importing contombre. We are importing plantain. So if you go and sign an African free trade agreement, what are you trading? If you sign an African free trade agreement and you are trading in goods produced in China, Japan, and Britain, what is the use of that free trade agreement? Who benefits from it? I'm sick and tired of all of this nonsense. Nonsense which has no relevance to the effort to alleviate the pain of our people. Comrades and friends, look around us. Look around us. Look at the gold industry. Today, total Ghanaian interest in the gold industry is 3%. 3%. And as if that is not bad enough, our Bank of Ghana has signed a foreign exchange retention agreement with the mining companies, which allows the mining companies to keep 98% of the value of gold exported from this country abroad. Why would you not try to impose e-levy on us? Why would you not do some of the foolish things that are being done today? If you allow the mining companies to keep as much as 98% of the value of gold exported out of this country, what are you going to do with your 2%? Why would you not face the kinds of problems we are facing today? You know, this morning, I read the Ghanaian newspapers, and I was happy about something which had happened. You know, the mining industry had decided to contribute $4 million to the disaster relief at Kyeretwie. You understand? And for the first time, I saw this young Minister for Lands and Natural Resources saying, no, this is not enough. You have made too much money out of this country for you to throw $4 million at us. And that the mining industry needs to do more in the rehabilitation of Kyeretwie. It's a small beginning, but it is a good beginning. And I'm happy with that. Now, this disaster that happened at Kyeretwie should tell us a lot about the economy we are running in this country. Why? Many of the people who worked in that village, who lived in that village, who died, whose houses were demolished and so on, work for the mining companies. Look at their houses, the houses they live in. Look at their conditions of life. Compare that to the expatriates who come and get licenses to mine gold. Why? Look at the disparity. Look at the disparity. Look at what we suffer. When I was growing up, I was told that the best oranges in the world come from Obuasi. Indeed, all of us know about Obuasi and Anka. Oranges from Obuasi. They are so sweet. It was in the 1980s that I saw a report which have been put forward by the Third World Network, which indicated that the acidic level in oranges from Obuasi, food from Obuasi, is 300 times more than what is approved by the World Health Organization. This is a consequence of mining. And what are we getting for suffering this consequence? All of us have heard the stories about fishes dying in waters in the mining area as a result of arsenic poisoning. Are we going to die for nothing? Are we going to die so that the bank accounts of multinational corporations will swell? What is wrong with us? What is wrong with our leaders? And indeed, we have these leaders. We have these leaders because we have allowed them to be leaders. If we refuse to allow them to be leaders, they cannot be leaders. And we are in this situation because we are partly to be blamed for it. We sit down every 4 years, and then they come to us and say, go and vote for me, and they come with all kinds of foolish slogans and so on, lies, propaganda and so on, and then we line up in the sun and vote for them, and when we finish, they look us in the face and say there's no space in the public service to employ us. But they still find space in the public and civil service to employ their sons and daughters and relatives. We allowed this to happen. If we are true Nkrumahs, if we believe in the ideas of Osagyefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and so on, we must say to ourselves that never again would we allow charlatans to pose as our leaders, and that we can take our destiny into our own hands and march forward into a future of prosperity. Let us say to ourselves that we will become masters of our own destiny, and that we will build our independent organizations and begin to construct a new world on the foundations of social and economic justice. Let us say to ourselves that the time has come to mobilize as never before to shake off the shackles of colonialism and reckless management of our resources. Comrades and friends, the independence movement, which was led by gallant men and women like Nkrumah, like Dede, Ashikusha, and all of them, have three clear objectives. The first objective of the independence movement was for us to get power, political power, for us to retrieve our power, to choose our own leaders. Because under colonialism, we couldn't choose our own leaders. The Queen of England appointed the governor, who was the head of state. There were times in our colonial history where the Queen of England actually even appointed district and metropolitan chief executives for us. When I was growing up, you went to church, and the head pastor was a priest. The postmaster, the head pastor, was white. The postmaster was white. You went to hospital, the doctor was white. You went to secondary school, your biology teacher was white. Your geography teacher was white, and so on. Why would you not develop a complex of inferiority? Why would you not develop a complex of inferiority if anybody who mattered in your society was white? Why would you not come up with silly slogans and statements like Obronyo John and so on? But after 56 years of independence, we cannot be saying to ourselves that Obronyo John. After 56 years of independence, we must be able to stand on our feet and say to the world that we will make our own mistakes and we will succeed, and that we are not inferior to any other people anywhere in the world. And that we can build our own nation. So, comrades and friends, as far as I'm concerned, when you talk about the Ghanaian economy, you are talking about the institutions and mechanisms put in place to make sure that we can eat, that we can drink water, good water, and bath well. That when I wake up in the morning, I must get soap to wash my body, to wash the dirt on my body, off my body. When we are talking about the good economy, we are talking about the arrangements which make it possible for my grandson to go to school and to grow up to become somebody like Samuel Kudato. That's what we are talking about. What we are talking about is to develop that capacity which will make sure that my grandson would never go naked on the streets of Accra, and that he will have enough to cover his body against the vagaries of the weather and so on. Nothing magical. These are the simple things that we are talking about. Look, I think I've spoken enough. But let me end it this way. You know, today in Ghana, our country is so badly polarized. And this polarization finds expression in our parliament. You go to parliament, 137, 137. Somehow, through some tricky things and so on, somebody has managed to declare that one side which has 137 is the majority, and the other side which has 137 is the minority. How they work this magic out, I don't know. But they have done it. The reality today is simply this. This winner takes it all politics cannot work in our circumstance. This majority-minority mentality is a thing of the past. The reality today is that we must find ways of thinking and working together. Look, this week I've been completely stunned because of this fixation with majority and minority. Look at how much we spent on one meeting of parliament. Hiring private jets for parliamentarians who were outside the country to come and vote. Private jets for votes. Look at how much we are told parliamentarians were paid just to show up in parliament. It is crazy. It's not working. And we have to realize that. Instead of spending millions getting parliamentarians into Parliament House to vote and so on, why can't we say to ourselves that this is the state of our national economy, this is where we are, what do you think? What do you think and what do you think? Why can't we think together and agree on the way forward? How can't we think together to build consensus and so on? This country is in need of consensus building. And consensus building can only come about when you have mature and sensible leaders. In the absence of mature and sensible leaders, in the absence of leaders who think about you and I, in the absence of leaders who think about my grandchildren and so on, we can never build consensus. And this madness of competition, majority versus minority and community and community, will destroy us all. Comrades and friends, we haven't seen anything yet. And let me be graphic. When we are told that to service our debts and to pay public sector emoluments, we need 128% of total national revenue. Do you know what that means? It means that if our president decides to move from Flagstaff House to North Jowulu, where we are today, we have to borrow to put petrol in his car. That's the reality. It means that if we get foreign guests today and we want to give them food, wache, don't think about those. We have to borrow to buy wache for a foreign guest. It means that if we have to construct gutters in our communities, we have to borrow. It means that if we have to find medicine for the sick people in our society, we have to borrow. That's how bad things are. That is how bad things are. 128% of total national revenue goes into paying for only 2 items on the national budget. That's how bad things are. That is how bad things are. And what is the way out? To borrow more? E-levy? No. The way out is that we must begin to think outside the box. Think outside the box. The way out is to begin to look at the resources we have and how we may exploit those resources to improve lives. The way out is to stop thinking inside that small dirty box. The way out is to get out of that dirty box and think as Nkrumah did. You know, not too long ago, I was on the streets of Caracas, Venezuela, with a friend of mine who is in this crowd. I don't know where he's sitting somewhere, Justice Hineku. And before we went to Caracas, the Western media was making so much noise about hunger in Venezuela. The people of Venezuela cannot eat. There is no food because the government is so bad and so on. That's what we were being told. Justice is in this crowd. Justice Hineku is in this crowd. And then we got to Caracas. And we're driving through the streets of Caracas. And Justice drew my attention and said, look. A heap of oranges as high as this building. Oranges, raw, fresh from the farm. I said, but look. They said the people are hungry. Look. And I looked and I said, but these are oranges. Who eats oranges for dinner? And then we continued moving. And then we saw a heap of cassava. Heap of cassava. And then by the roadside, we saw the people's staple on the roadside and so on. And Justice and I began reflecting. How can there be so much food, and yet we are being told that there's no food in Venezuela? And Justice was the person who got it first. And he said, look, the bourgeois and the petty bourgeois don't eat the people's food. So you can have the people's food in abundance. If you don't have cornflakes, you don't have sardine, you don't have ideal milk, and you don't have what other thing, noodles and so on, then there's no food because the bourgeoisie's food is not there. It's the food for the masses which is there. And it taught me a lesson. In 1966, the coup plotters and their supporters said that there was hunger in Ghana. That's why they staged the coup. Meanwhile, the Workers' Brigade was producing tons of maize. The Workers' Brigade was producing yams. It was producing cassava and so on. That middle class, the petty bourgeois and the bourgeoisie, they couldn't get their cornflakes. They couldn't get their ideal milk and sardines. And therefore, they thought that the world had to come to an end. This is the time. This is the time for socialist and revolutionary forces to tell that petty bourgeoisie, the elite in our society, that we prize the interest and comfort of the masses, the working people, above theirs. And we shall continue to work to produce the cassava, the cocoyam, the contombre, and so on, the palm oil, the kobe, and others, so that our people can eat and eat well. And break this dependence on the colonial metropolis, even for our food. Comrades, I think that it will be a monumental crime if I do not end with comments on what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. And I do this because it has serious repercussions for all of us. 4 days ago, I was reading a report from the Bank of Ghana, which predicted that petroleum prices were going to be stable throughout the year around $71 per barrel. So we started doing all of our calculations on the basis of $71 per barrel. 2 days later, after Biden and Putin exchanged some hot words and so on, bam! It moved to $90 per barrel. This morning I checked, the price of petrol on the international market had moved to $103 per barrel. Now all of you know what that means for the Ghanaian economy. So what is happening between Russia and Ukraine is not something which is too far away. It will affect your pocket, it will affect the size of your kenke, it will affect your ability to survive. And that is why it is important for all the sane voices of the world to be calling for a ceasefire as quickly as possible. We need a ceasefire in that confrontation. We need a ceasefire because we cannot continue to suffer the consequences of the rivalries in Europe. The rivalries in Europe between the different capitalist and nationalist forces led to World War I and World War II without consequences for all of us. And our fathers and grandfathers fought in those wars and lost their lives. Europe should not drag the world, into another war. 2 wars are enough. We don't want a 3rd world war. But in all of this, it is also important to insist that the legitimate security interests of Russia must be taken into account. Why is NATO continuing to exist today? NATO was supposed to be a counterforce to the Warsaw Pact Treaty. The Warsaw Pact is over. It no longer exists. So why is NATO there? What is NATO doing? What is NATO doing? These senseless confrontations and threats of biting sanctions and so on can only lead to more disaster for all of us in the world. And we call upon the leaders of Europe to be responsible and to think and to do everything possible to avoid another catastrophic war. The world is suffering enough already. We are suffering serious economic and social problems already. The people of Palestine are continuing under Israeli apartheid occupation. The people of Western Sahara continue to suffer the indignity of occupation by Morocco. The citizens of the Western countries are facing increasing unemployment and so on. In West Africa, we are facing Islamic insurgency sweeping down. Only 2 weeks ago, Benin was attacked by the Islamic insurgents, who are already operating in Mali, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and elsewhere. This is not the time for another war. The resources which will be expended on war can be expended on food production, can be expended on improving health care, can be expended on improving our people's access to housing. Let us all think again. Comrades and friends, we are rising again. We are rising again. And very, very soon, sooner than later, we shall take up the mantle of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and begin the reconstruction of Ghana under the banner of socialism. Thank you all very much. Comrades and friends, I've just been reminded by our leader, Comrade Kyeretwie Opoku, that tomorrow we are organizing a manifestation in front of the Pan-African television. This manifestation is for free expression in Ghana. And it is also a solidarity event, an event of solidarity with Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. All we are going to do tomorrow is to stand in front of Pan-African television and lift up our placards in what we call the placard parade. And all of you do know the situation of free expression in Ghana today. And all of you do know that if Assange is extradited to the United States of America, the consequences it will have for investigation, journalism, and free expression. So on behalf of the Socialist Forum of Ghana, I invite all of you to join us tomorrow in this parade of placards in front of Pan-African television at 9:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. Thank you very much.
Can we have another round of applause for Comrade? Couple of announcements. One, we'd like to say thank you very much. The small collection we did realized 1,101 Ghana cedis. We appreciate the contribution very, very much. It's later than we thought it would be, so it's probably not a good idea to start a floor discussion. We apologize for that. There are a couple of people I would like to recognize that my colleagues have asked that we recognize. There are few people here who are representing institutions. We'd like to recognize that the National Union of Ghana students are here. We thank them very much for their solidarity. The Rastafarian Council is here. I can't see who is representing. Unfortunately, if you're sitting here, you have the lights in your eyes, so I can't actually make out a lot of faces. I believe that the Convention People's Party, Bright Oduro Party, thank you very much for showing up. Then a few individuals. Okay. Comrade Akila Pasoya is here. Aki is truly one of our leaders in SMG, our inspirators and so on. We also have Comrade Call Ansah here with us tonight. Very good to see you. These are two senior citizens here. We have, is that Ashte? Yes. Honorable Niyama Ashte, former Member of Parliament. We have Sami Okujeto Ablakwa, Member of Parliament for Tongun North, is here with us. I can see Colonel Larry Gweblo Latte. Thank you very much. Indeed. Dr. Anaba, where are you? Okay, yeah. Thank you, Comrade. Did I see Silva? Okay, Ambassador Tamaklo, thank you very much. Glad you're here. There are probably a few others I can't make out with the lights in my eyes, but thank you. Sorry? Comrade Nasser, Professor Gamel Nasser, are you here? Hassan. Okay. Oh, our own Hassan. Okay, welcome. Okay. Comrade Emilia Arthur, welcome. And my own comrade and cousins, Reverend Dr. Spencer Duncan, welcome very much. Okay, that's all I have. I think we're going to bring proceedings to a close here. Once again, we thank you very, very much for showing up, for recognizing the event, for solidarizing with the struggle that we want to keep alive, to strengthen, and to grow in our country. I think the objects of that struggle have been very well captured and expressed by our two speakers. So I'd like another round of applause for them. I also want to recognize the efforts of the Accra Collective of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. They are principally the ones who put this event together. We apologize for some of the sound quality. We only moved into this building less than a month ago. We're still putting systems in place, and particularly the systems required to do a broadcast for Pan-African TV to do a broadcast from here rather than from their regular premises. So I'd like to thank the PATV crew who are here again for this event and for all the solidarity support you've given to SMG events over the years. Last and not least, I'd like again to thank all of you for coming. I wish everybody a safe trip back to wherever we are going. Those of you who can't make it tomorrow, even if it's just for 5 minutes, stop by, say hello, solidarize with Julian. He's an important leader of our struggle. And as Kwesi said, we've all seen what is happening to the culture of free expression and to the individual proponents, the people through who this right, this collective right of ours is expressed. We have seen journalists killed in this country. We have seen journalists locked up arbitrarily. We've seen journalists beaten up. There's a very high level of intolerance parading through our system. And the only way to stop that, as Kwesi pointed out, is to challenge it. If we all keep quiet and watch, as they say, if they come for you in the morning, they'll come for me in the night. So if you can, please stop by tomorrow. You all know where Pan-African TV is. Stop by for a few minutes and let's take the fight forward. Thank you all once again and safe journey home. Bye.